Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Clutter. I'm your host, Margo, a professional organizer specializing in chronic clutter. I'm so excited about today's podcast episode. I have the wonderful Alexis with us today. She is someone who has conquered clutter in her home, and she will be sharing her decluttering journey with us, what inspired her to roll up her sleeves and start decluttering, her challenges along the way, and most importantly, advice for those of you who are feeling stuck and are struggling to get started. So welcome, Alexis. Thank you so much for being here today. And to start, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to begin decluttering your home?
Good morning, Margo. Thank you for having me. Loving the idea of being here. So how I got to this place was I grew up in a household where clutter was normal. So getting rid of stuff was not the norm, and it was kind of like frowned upon in a way with some things. Oh, you might need this for this. Oh, somebody might need that, or you could donate. So I, built those bad habits, and so over time, the progress that I made, pretty much like got reversed.
It sounds like you were somebody that you were comfortable decluttering certain parts of your home. So it wasn't
Hmm.
so much that you experienced clutter all over your space. It seemed like you were able to declutter, for example, clothing that you found easier and things of that
Hmm.
nature. So your home in essence wasn't overrun by clutter. You had a
Right.
few Achilles heels, which was your closet, which
Hmm.
housed a ton of paperwork. So
Hmm.
it was really kind of like you left the hardest for last.
Yeah.
So decluttering that paperwork is really where you needed somebody to come in and help you out and guide you and provide
Hmm.
accountability. So you definitely had a clear starting point when we
Hmm.
started working together. And it was that clutter, it was the paperwork, it was the textbooks. What was your method of decluttering? Like, what helped you to finally be able to declutter paperwork? Or rather, what did you struggle with? Like, why was it so hard for you to declutter the paperwork while you were so successful in other areas of your home?
Um, I can't even really pinpoint one exact thing. I just remember, like let's take textbooks for example. It just was I don't know. It just gets too stressful and emotional thinking about getting rid of this thing that I might need someday. Like just creating these stories in my mind that just would leave me so frustrated. And meanwhile, this thing is taking up space in my home. And as far as the papers, it was like it was an overwhelming amount, and I might get started, and every time I will look at it, like I didn't have a plan. I was an all or nothing thinker. So I would expect myself to get through large amounts. In my head, it seemed easy until I was faced with the emotion that came with processing. Each thing was a decision, it was a feeling, it was an emotion, it was a thought, and it was so overwhelming. I had no way of like chopping that down because I wanted it all gone like now. Had
Yeah,
this
paperwork
lofty
takes
goal.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
paperwork is definitely one of those things that unless you just don't even bother looking at what's in there and
Hmm.
you just shred it
Hmm.
all, it does take a lot of time. And I think that a
Yes.
lot of people don't realize that when we start doing this, we lose motivation and momentum because it's like we sat there for an hour going through paperwork
Hmm.
and you went through
Hmm.
this and you're like, I
Hmm.
barely put a dent in this pile.
Hmm.
Like, what's the
Yeah.
point of continuing?
Yes. Yes. It's nauseating. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what worked for you as far as decluttering your paperwork and your textbooks? What did you find worked for you?
Oh my gosh. So setting the timer, definitely, like your idea to just do 15 minutes. So sometimes I would feel like my 15 minutes was like a huge success, and other times it was just a small one. But your weekly celebrations of like, look, you did that today, you did that this week, because in your mind, you're like, I just still have so much more to do. But when you force me to recall what all happened, because you're going about your week, you're
Yeah.
working, you're doing this and this and that, you're going through the motions of everything that you had to do, and you forget those little tiny wins, like throwing away that textbook that you wanted to refer to, but you never did. It was just such a huge ball of stress. And then by the end of the week, you forgot about that. So when you will force me to, hey, remember you did this, like, remember you did that, I'm just like, damn, like, you know what, you're right. I can do this again.
Celebrating wins is incredibly important. Like we
Mm-hmm,
hardly ever celebrate wins, and if we do, they're monumental.
mm-hmm,
Like I got married, I bought a house, and like how often
mm-hmm,
do those things happen?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So oftentimes it's just like, I didn't really do that much. And then lo and behold, it's like an entire
Mm-hmm.
list. And now when we add to that the emotional component, right? When it's something
Right.
sentimental or when it's something that you're holding on to, past self
Mm-hmm,
or the guilt of I invested or spent money on this or whatnot, right? Even letting go of one item like a textbook is a
mm-hmm.
huge deal. It is an
Right.
absolutely huge deal because those are
Right.
things that we've been holding on to for years and years and years. So I
Mm-hmm.
think celebration and having an accountability partner in general, whether it's a coach or a friend or a neighbor, it doesn't matter, or mom, having accountability
Yes.
and having support and having somebody really keep a record of all of your wins is going
Mm-hmm.
to help you to be successful. So that's a
Yes.
great tip for like all of you listening is invest in a support buddy, invest in an
Mm-hmm.
accountability partner because it truly does help motivate us and guide us through the process. Do you recall what was one of your most challenging items to part with? And maybe you didn't part with it yet. Maybe we
Um,
still got it around the house.
I felt like, yeah, the top textbooks was at the, like, very big on the list. I think another one was, I don't know why, like, like my fantasy self just saw me as, I guess, this organized person, and having all of this stuff, um a certain kind of way, but like with my mind, and like, just having ADHD is like, you have all these ideas that you don't execute, but you also have all this stimulation. You realize that, hey, everything that's taking up space in your home is asking something of you.
Yeah.
And you literally only have so much energy. So every time you look at, for example, that those textbooks that you're not utilizing, you're kind of like, wow, this is a weight on my shoulders. And when you finally just like let it go, you're like, this is an irrational thought that you're having, just keeping this around. What use are you putting to it? Someone else can utilize this. You don't need to do this to yourself. Like, you deserve to be like just free and relaxed and feel at ease in your home, not having all this stuff calling your attention versus you focusing on yourself. It kind of put everything into perspective. Like, I had to like constantly check myself. And if I didn't have you there every day, just like, reaching out to me like, hey, Alexis, what'd you work on today? What are you working on today?
You're like
I
status
don't,
update, produce
yeah,
results now.
yeah, exactly. It's the truth. And it's like some days it's just like it is mentally and emotionally draining to think that you have to come back to this mountain that's in front of you. And when you realize that you have, for me, accountability work like wonders. It's just something that allow me to like keep pushing forward, because we want to take breaks naturally. We're just human beings. When that motivation from like that first or second week, or the first, first couple of days of the week, like, wears off, and you would catch on to that, you'd be like, okay, Alexis, what are we doing today? Like, you would reel me right back in. It's like, okay, right, I'm gonna work on this, I'm gonna work on that, I'm gonna chip away at this, chip away at that. I had to remove myself from that all or nothing thinking.
Yeah. You are somebody, so you mentioned that you were decluttering for quite some time. So you were probably
Mm-hmm.
decluttering for a good, what, couple of years
Yeah, off and on.
before,
Yeah.
yeah, off and
You
on. So you
start, you
weren't
take a break.
necessarily, right. You weren't necessarily new to the decluttering game. It
Right.
was more
Mm-hmm.
so you needed like an additional level of support to kind of get through
Mm-hmm.
some of the harder stuff. So I think that
Yes.
with you, from what I'm hearing you say, is it's not so much that there were specific items because you were pretty much down to like your sentimental, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
hard to part with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but I think with you is more so kind of redirecting you back on task and kind of
Mhm.
having those realistic and the mindset shift, because you are a very all or nothing. Like it's like if I put my mind to something, all of it needs to get done overnight. And as we all know,
Mhm.
decluttering does not happen overnight.
No.
So it's really zeroing in on and focusing your attention on small wins,
Mhm.
right? And small victories. And I think most importantly, keeping that commitment and that momentum going. Because, like you said, there are days and times where you don't want to do this anymore and you're
Yeah.
tired and you want to give up. And it's easy to make excuses and say, but I had all of these other things on my agenda. And it's like with you, it was more kind of refocusing and finishing the project and supporting you along the way, and you were able to be successful to the point where now all you're essentially left with is kind of those maintenance strategies so that we
Mhm.
don't go back to accruing
Yes.
a ton of paperwork.
Step in like a trainer, like when you know you have to come, you have to, if your trainer is your accountability partner
Yeah.
every day, you're recommitting every day. It's easy to like when you're, like on a weight loss journey or dieting to just when nobody's watching, do nothing. But
Yeah.
when you are committing to
Mhm.
this person every day, it's like you have to show up and you want to show them your progress.
Yeah.
So you can't make it up. It's
Yeah.
like, look, I either did this or I didn't. So,
Like, where's the
yeah.
photograph?
Yeah, you helped me like do those baby steps. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think you did fantastic and you had a lot of insight into just while going through it. I think that um it's beneficial to note that it is an emotional journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we do reflect that we do have days where we're sad, where we're angry, right? There were times where I think you got angry at all, like
Hell
the
yeah.
effect that these inanimate objects
It
are
was here.
having on you.
Yes.
Like, and I think that there's some benefits of that. Like, guys, like get
Mm-hmm.
angry at your clutter sometimes, right? At the
Yes.
end of the day, we are allowing inanimate objects with no
Mm-hmm.
feeling, no emotion, right? To literally
Absolutely.
impact us both physically and mentally. Like that should piss you off. Like
And it did.
it
And it
did.
did. Because every day that I had to come back and there was still more of that
Yeah.
pile. I might have chipped away at it yesterday, but it's like every day you have to come back and you're here. It's like you're still here, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, why am I allowing myself? It made you just get more into your own mind.
Yeah.
Why am I allowing you to have such a hold on me and my life? Like, if
Hmm.
I get rid of you, I can move on to something else. I can do other things, Like I had my list of my goals. I was like, oh, I'm not making time for myself to do this or to do that, go on a vacation, take care of myself more, go to the gym more. And I wasn't doing it because of like, you have this clutter at home that if you get rid of it, then you'll have more time for all the other things. It's like,
Yeah.
but you're not tackling the color. So,
Yeah.
that's where the accountability buddy came in. So, yeah.
What would you say have been some of like the positive changes? Like what have you observed by having less stuff? How has that affected you?
Um, I'm not as overwhelmed when I go into either of my closets. Like, like the
True
closet
story.
that used to have all the paper or even my clothing closet because, like towards the end of our working together, like you start talking about Project 333 and then that like inspired me to like venture into that and like now like my clothing closet, like getting dressed is so less overwhelming. Just like, oh, I'm just gonna grab this, I'm gonna grab that. So it's like I might have been scared to step into that on my own, but because I had you went through it. So because I had you as like, a sister to help me through that, it's like your sister, your friend, just like,
Yeah.
okay, well, this is how you can approach this. Because having a book is one thing. Like, look, I had the KonMari book, okay? And look, did it solve my life? No, it didn't. I could buy the Project 33 book. But sometimes you just need someone to just like brainstorm and coach you through things and to give you, hope that, hey, you can do this. Yes, it's doable. And decluttering is not a one one and done. I'm
No.
still constantly be able to go through things to be like, okay, now that I've let go of I built that decluttering muscle that we talked about, and it made it easier to let go of some stuff that maybe I didn't the first couple times around.
Yeah.
So going through that closet where I might have still had this left over, that left over, and I'm just like, you know what? Okay, I can let go of this. I can let go of that. I can find things easier. I'm
Mhm.
not, I'm doing little things that you asked me to do in the beginning. Like, okay, your mail, for example, when that shows up, get rid of, the stuff that you don't need right away. Go through your mail right away. Like, don't let it sit. It's like putting things where they need to go, like right away. Like, I'll have you in the back of my head. It's like still there. It's just like, Lord, I don't want to have to go through this ever again. And it's not that things won't accumulate, but because you introduced a decluttering plan
Yeah.
where you write out yourself your goals and how you're going to tackle each area, it helps you to just keep things under control. That way, if life gets hectic, I know that I have a maintenance plan.
Yeah. And also you change, right? I mean, the more you declutter, the more you appreciate what your
Hmm.
home looks like, right? The more you
Exactly.
respect yourself and how you feel, and you tend to begin. And this is something that I think is you have to experience it for yourself, right? Like, I
Hmm.
think we've all heard like all of these incredible things start to happen when I'm
Hmm.
decluttering. My mind changes, I feel better, my
Yeah.
anxiety decreases, my depression maybe gets better until you're actually doing the work. Right. It's not about consumption. It's not about reading books, videos. I mean, it's great, right? All of that is great. Knowledge is power, but not at the cost of preventing you from actually taking action. It's really one of those things where you truly experience all the benefits by doing. And
Right.
then like you're describing, at this point for you, it's all about maintenance. It's like you bring
Hmm.
something in and then you maybe remove something. You find
Hmm.
something like a hair product that's already empty instead of keeping it, or maybe there's a little bit left for just in case, you get rid of it right away.
Yes.
All of those things start to happen as you begin to
Yes.
remove clutter from your home.
Yes.
So, I think that for a lot of folks, they can't imagine, right? They can't picture all of these benefits that anybody who's like a decluttering guru talks about all of
Hmm.
these benefits and they're like, huh, kind of sounds nice in theory, but it's true.
Yeah.
It does happen once you actually begin to take action and once you
Yeah.
and relatively quickly as you're removing clutter from your home, but you got to start
Yeah. You
purging
got to start. Yeah. And
to
the
see
big
what's
thing was giving my self permission to let things go,
yes,
because there's
beautiful.
so much guilt attached to, oh, I purchased this. Oh, someone gave this to me. Oh, it's like we just give ourselves this unnecessary guilt, and before you know it, like your space is just consumed with things that remind you of people, places, and things. And when you come home, you don't feel relaxed. You feel like you should be straightening up things or decluttering or organizing. And it's like, who wants to feel like that every day that they come home? Like, I remember when my finally got like my bedroom, under control, and it was just like, I feel calm in here, you know when we got towards the end of our working together, like sitting on the couch, just like enjoying a cup of tea, I didn't feel guilt doing that. And I didn't have that before we started doing this, because I wasn't giving myself permission to let go, to just have less and reclaim my time and my space. It was never my intention to have all of these things. And we really do have to forgive ourselves. Like, look,
Yeah.
this life, sometimes life throws things at you, and this fantasy self that thinks that you're going to have all this stuff and your house is going to look this way. And before you know it, you're like, oh my God, like I'm just surrounded by crap. Like, what did I
Yeah.
do? How did I get here? And how do I get out? And the reality is that you just have to give yourself permission to A, be human, B, make mistakes, C, let go. Because if you're worried about, oh, what is this person going to think that I let go of this? Like, first of all, people are too consumed with their own lives to worry about what you did with that thing that they gave you, you know, last year on your birthday. Like, come on now. Like, you need to put into perspective how you want to feel. I want to feel at peace in my home. I want to feel like I have time to myself. I don't want to feel like I'm spending all of my extra time to organize and clean and,
Yeah.
declutter. And decluttering literally will only take you a few minutes a day. And you can chip away at it slowly. Those little 15 minutes that you introduced me to getting used to were, instrumental. In some ways I was able to do more, and some days I could barely do the 15 because that one thing that I might have let go just might have been just, I carry all these,
Yeah.
this energy, thoughts, just guilt. It's just like, oh, what did I do to myself?
Hmm.
So,
It's not easy. There are easy days and there are hard days. And I think that you have to give yourself grace on
yes.
days where it's too heavy, on days when it's too emotional. Um, and just be like, that's okay. Like today I'm not decluttering. Or I know that, for a lot of folks who specifically have ADHD, whether it's, small bursts, 15-minute increments, but sometimes even that's too much. So possibly 1 to 5 items a day. Even on those really bad days, everyone can find a paper clip to get rid of.
Yeah,
It's a
it's a
win, right?
win. How long was that paper sitting there?
Right.
That thing on your table.
You have been successful. You're doing incredibly well. You've also transitioned into organization. Like you mentioned, you
Hmm.
started with Project 333. I know that you've organized parts of your closet.
Hmm.
So you're doing fantastic. You're definitely like more intermediate leaning into advanced. What advice would you give to, someone who is struggling to even get started?
The advice I would probably give them is, like I said, just give yourself permission. Give yourself permission and look at the things that you're absolutely not reaching for. What are you? We all have stuff in our closet that we do not reach for, and we keep telling ourselves that, hey, I might need this for this. Like if you're like me, you were trained as a child. Oh, you might need this for this. You might, like, come on now. You take that into your adulthood, and before you know it, you're not letting go of anything. We were never meant to be holding on to all this stuff. Okay. Start with the stuff that you're not utilizing, and you're teaching yourself that you can let go that way. And look at the stuff that you're using all the time. You know, if you're somebody who periodically is going shopping, you're going to replace something. So we have to let go of the things that we know we're absolutely not reaching for, and try not to bring anything in until you
That's
absolutely need to.
wise. That's wise. No shopping until you
Yeah,
finish decluttering. That's hard.
mhm.
That's a hard one though.
It is. And when I looked at around my closet, for example, and I had, when's the last time I wore heels? You know what I'm saying? I can't even tell you how many pairs of heels I reluctantly let go of. Some of them never worn,
Yeah.
they're beautiful, they're gorgeous, okay? But let's be realistic. Was I going to wear them? No. And it was the idea, the fantasy self,
Yeah.
that was holding on to, oh, these will look cute with this will look cute with that, that'll look great when I lose weight, da 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 da. Like, come on, child. Like, look, start where you are. If you don't give yourself permission to let go of things, you can't inspire yourself
Mm-hmm.
because there's too much stuff around you, and it's really distracting. So sometimes you just have to pare down to just get down to your basics. I'm like, okay, this is basically what I'm reaching for all the time. It's like,
Yeah.
look, fantasy self, she ain't wear that dress, she ain't put on that skirt, she ain't wearing them heels. It's like, look, you gotta go. Like, I'm so sorry. And somebody could be out there
Yeah.
enjoying that stuff that I let
Yeah.
go of. It
Yeah.
hurts, okay? It
Yeah.
hurt. All
But it
right,
hurts for like a minute.
jeez.
And then by the time it's
It
out of your
did.
house, you don't even
I was
remember
so
that you
happy. I was so happy. Okay. I was so happy. It was bittersweet. It's a gift to yourself.
Yeah.
You really are gifting yourself freedom when you don't have to make the decision of, when am I going to wear this? I barely go out. So why do I have all these clothes if I'm not going to work or not doing something, routine, you know, work, gym, home, basic stuff,
Yeah.
grocery shopping. Why I got all this? Why? Listen, when a time comes, and fashions change, your body changes, you can go out and gift yourself something later.
Yeah.
But for now, stick to what's necessary and believe in yourself that you
Yeah.
got this, and you can
Yeah.
reel it back in every time.
Yeah. Absolutely. So start small, right? And I love that, giving yourself permission to let go. But the most important thing is to get started.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that I urge everybody, if you haven't started yet, but you've been thinking about it, today is the day. And I don't mean tomorrow. I mean, like, today is the day.
Mhm.
Head over, pick up that like sheet of paper, or I don't
Get
know,
mad
that,
at that sheet of paper.
right.
Okay.
Or that
Get mad
miscellaneous
at it.
trinket, or that
Like, how
broken
dare you
kitchen
be in
broom.
my way? You
I love
know?
that.
How
I
dare
just
you?
throw it out. Okay. Just
Yeah.
go and throw it out. But it does take time. And, Alexis has been on this journey for several years. So I think that shifting your perspective that decluttering and achieving a clutter-free home is not something that happens overnight.
Hmm.
It is an investment of your time and your energy and
Yes.
your willpower, but you will get there. And, if you continue to procrastinate and you're like, I'm going to start in a year from now, well, imagine how much clutter you'll accrue in the next year, which is why it's
Yes.
important to start today, right?
Yes.
And little by little, kind of purge that space.
Let go of the guilt.
Let go of the guilt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just move forward.
Wonderful. Well, Alexis, thank you so much for being here. And thank you so
Thank
much for
you for having
sharing
me.
your journey
It's
and
been
your
my
valuable
pleasure.
insight. Thank you so much for listening. As always, good luck on your decluttering journey. And remember to be good to yourselves.